Hi everyone! Today I'm going to answer some of your questions with a Q&A video. So let's just get started with the questions. First question is, where are you? I'm currently living in Japan, just outside of Tokyo. How old were you when you moved to another country? I was 21 years old. I was a junior in university when I did a semester abroad in Spain. What made you decide to move to Asia in the first place? I decided to join the Peace Corps, and when you sign up for the Peace Corps, you don't get to choose which country you're going to end up in. But instead, you can kind of give preference to a certain region. And I was really thinking, what region is going to offer a culture that is the most different from the one that I've grown up in? And at the time, Asia seemed like the most exotic choice. What was your journey like going from college to Peace Corps to teaching in other countries? Just before I applied for the Peace Corps, I had just finished up an internship in New York City with a finance firm. It basically had been a dream come true, what I had been working my entire life towards. It was only 10 weeks living in New York City and working for this company, but somehow I realized this is not the kind of lifestyle that I wanted, and this is actually not what I wanted to be doing with my life. So I made a difficult decision to walk away from all of that, and I applied to join the Peace Corps. And at first, that was a really scary decision, but as soon as I made that decision, it immediately felt so freeing, and it felt like I was exactly in the right place where I wanted to be. So I've carried that same attitude with me no matter where I am in the world. If I'm not happy or there's something I'd rather be doing, I'm just gonna make changes. I try not to let society tell me what I should be doing with my life and instead follow my heart. So to answer your question, it was very natural. The transitions were exactly what I wanted to be doing, and I felt a lot of peace and happiness because of that. What do you do for a living, and how does your husband fit into your lifestyle? I've always worked as an English teacher or a teacher trainer, and my husband does the exact same thing. We've more or less been working at the same job since we met. In fact, I met him at one of my jobs when we were working on an island in South Korea. So as far as the whole minimalism thing goes, he's pretty open to it because we do move around a lot, and it just means that he has to carry less. How many languages do you know? I know some Khmer, which is Cambodian, and I also speak some Spanish. Besides that, I don't really speak any other languages, and there's two reasons for that. One, learning a language is actually a huge investment of time and energy. And a lot of people think that if you move to another country and you're immersed in the language that you'll just kind of absorb it and become fluent very quickly. But that's not the case for most people, and especially not for me, which leads me to the second reason. Learning languages is very difficult for me. I confuse them a lot. I will speak multiple languages at one time, and I just have a general difficulty hearing, and I'm very visual. So it just doesn't come natural to me. One way I get around it is because I'm an English teacher, I'm in an environment of lots of bilingual people, and they actually want to practice their English anyways. So it works out really well. I spend my time building relationships with them, and then they can help me if I'm ever in trouble, and we can go out on trips together, and they can show you some amazing things you never would have been seen if you hadn't made those friends. Where was your favorite place to live and why? I'd have to say Australia, and that's probably because I was there for just under 6 months, so everything was still perfect and wonderful, and I didn't really get to see some of those more difficult things that you tend to see when you spend longer times in a culture. But also, it was the first time I lived in an English-speaking country for over 8 years. So just being able to understand everything, all the signs, all the information, all the people, being able to completely and unrestrictedly enjoy everything the country had to offer was really refreshing, and I loved my time there. Do you have any advice for an American wanting to move to a non-English speaking country? My advice would be to speak slowly, don't use any slang, and use lots of actions. Basically, it's really hard to understand a second language when you're learning. They're going to be trying their best to listen, and you just want to make sure that you communicate in the simplest and most basic way to make it easy for them to understand. You can also download apps where you can type something in English and they can read it in their native language, and that can really help you if you ever find yourself stuck. When you move back, are you leaning towards USA or UK? The UK isn't really an option because my husband is adamantly against the weather there, so it'll probably be the US, but to be honest, neither of us really have a desire to live in our home country, and we both really crave new experiences. Do you think you will ever relocate to the US again? Yes, I do. We've been working on my husband's immigration papers for over a year, so we're just waiting for everything to clear, and we plan to head over there for a few years. The reason is we both want to launch our own businesses, so it would be good to have a stable place to kind of settle down for a little bit, and we're also just tired of traveling to both countries to see our family every year. It's really expensive, so we figured if we could relocate to be near one of the families, that would save a lot of expenses. Are you planning to move to other countries in the future? Yes, definitely. We don't plan to be in the US for more than a few years. We'd like to go back abroad again, probably to a Spanish-speaking country, although we usually don't plan that far ahead. Any future travel plans? My husband and I would both love to do a road trip around the US and also do some exploring in South America, so hopefully while we're based in the US we'll have an opportunity to do that. Do you move your things with you? Do you purchase furniture, or do you try to avoid unfurnished places? That's a great question because lots of expats will ship their stuff around from country to country, but me and my husband have never done that. We've always only brought what we're allowed to bring with us for free on the airplane, so usually that is 2 checked bags and a carry-on. I think furnished apartments are a great way to go. In the ESL world, teaching abroad, generally your contract will come with an apartment that is furnished, so it hasn't been a huge issue for us, but what I would recommend is all over Asia you can find these apartments which have a lot of built-in storage. Maybe they have a table that you can pull out, a built-in desk, built-in bookshelves, built-in closets and shoe cabinets. When all of that is part of the apartment, then you don't have to worry about buying those things or renting those things. Now, once we've packed everything, we usually still have some space or weight left over in our allowance to fly. We will pack things that are useful like bedding, pans, rugs, water filters, whatever of the items we've purchased that are more expensive and we don't want to just get rid of and buy again, we'll bring as much of it as we can. As for the rest of the stuff that you'd never want to pack on an airplane, like glasses and dishes, we have a small number of those things that we usually buy from IKEA, and we buy the same things every time. So we're just kind of gotten into this routine that when we move to a new country, we go to IKEA, we buy the same 2 glasses and the 2 plates and a couple of glass Tupperware, and we really live with just the basics because we know if we buy extra that we're not going to be able to bring it with us and it's going to be a lot of wasted money in the end, so we just live simply. The last thing I wanted to mention on this topic is that if we have bought things like a mattress or a mattress topper, bedside tables, etc., we will try to sell this on Craigslist before leaving. How do you make friends in new places? Do you keep those friends, or do you find it difficult to keep in contact once you leave? Alright, for the first part of the question, how to meet people, you're going to want to start with your colleagues, of course, befriend them, and then I usually join a church, so I meet a lot of different people through that community, and then I also look outside and just see what else is on offer. So for example, when I was living on Goje Island, I joined a Hash House Harriers group, and we would go running / hiking every 2 weeks, and it was a great way to explore different parts of the island and meet new people as well. There's often classes and different activities you can participate in, so it's just a matter of putting yourself out there. Alright, second part, what happens to those friends when you leave the country? I think most expats generally have this understanding that people are constantly coming and going. So in that sense, we can be a bit selective about investing in relationships if we don't think that they're going to last. At the same time, because it is a very intense situation and you have a lot of things in common, it's easy to become very close with people, and we've made a lot of great friends over the years. And it does seem that the relationship just kind of shuts off for a while, until the next time you see them. Of course, if you're in the same country or traveling and you meet up, You pick up just where you left off, you have a great time, you catch up, it's like it never happened. But in the meantime, you really need to move on with your life and focus your energy on the people who are there right in front of you. How do you organize a budget and expenses for essential things like food, special quality, non-GMO, whole food because they are more expensive, moving to other countries, entertainment, travel, and others? How do you save money for emergencies or vacations? What we kind of aim for is to live off one of the salaries. So we'll put, for example, my entire salary into savings, and then we'll live off my husband's, and that includes rent, giving, bills, food, vacation expenses, etc. Now that's really the goal. If we end up dipping into our savings a little bit for some travel plans or whatever, that's alright, but we do try and live off that one salary. Now you have to understand, if you're living this lifestyle where you're kind of a freelancer, moving around all the time, no one's looking out for your retirement. So you have to make sure you're saving that money and putting that money aside. So with that salary that we set aside, we usually keep $5,000 to $10,000 in cash. That would cover emergencies or anything like that, and the rest goes into investments. And then as for that other salary, once we've paid off all the expenses, the rent, the money we set aside for food and bills and all of that sort of stuff, we live off what's ever left over. Sometimes it's a lot and sometimes it's a little. It depends. It changes with each country we're in, but we adjust our lifestyle based on the amount of income that we're earning, and we just try to stay within our means. Now, as for organic, non-GMO, that kind of thing, that's a really good question. Across the board in Asia, it's just difficult to find the stuff because there's not much of a demand. So even if you had $1 million and you wanted to live a 100% organic lifestyle, it's just not possible. So once you've kind of figured out what your country has to offer, then you just look at your budget and think, okay, how can I distribute this money so that I'm buying things that have the least negative impact on my health? Now, as for us, we do have a budget, but the reason we're able to allocate so much to grass-fed organic food is simply because we prioritize it. We see it as an investment, and we're spending now in order to have a better future when we get older. So for us, we can't just have everything we want all the time. We do have to make sacrifices so we can put that money into our food budget. How do you handle medical appointments in Japan? In Japan, actually, it has been one of the more difficult countries. A lot of the other countries we've lived in, the staff speak English at the hospitals and it hasn't been an issue. But in Japan, we do have to have our colleagues make the appointment for us, and then we just kind of show up at the hospital and do a massive game of charades until whatever we came there for, whether it be a chest x-ray or whatnot, has been completed, and then we just leave. If it was ever more serious, we would have the option of going to an English-speaking hospital in Tokyo, or hiring a translator or having one of our friends come in to translate. Alright, so I think I'm going to have to stop there. That sums up all the questions on living abroad and traveling. I'm going to have to make a separate video for all the ones that were related to minimalism, so you can keep an eye out for that in the future. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.